Outlook and how we can use that for time management. And you may see, hopefully up on my screen, there are a few slides that we're going to just take a look through, because what we want to do first is understand a little bit about our cycle, the way that we book our time, and kind of get an understanding of that, because really to use Outlook effectively for time management, we want to think about some of these things ahead of time so that we can set it up to best maximize our efficiency. So this is going to kind of vary person by person. So the first thing we want to maybe think about is ways that we schedule our time, and how much time. That's the big question. How much time is a task going to take? So is it going to be something that takes a long time? Then we're going to want to put it in our calendar. If it's something that's going to take a short time, in our task list. And if it's something that comes in and we say, oh, well, this is only going to take me a couple minutes, go ahead and do it now. The best thing for efficiency is going to be to take care of it right away if it's something small. That way you're not spending time scheduling it and completing it and just really tracking something that can be done kind of on the fly. So what those different periods mean are going to be different for different people. So a long time for you may be an hour or more. A short time might be 10 minutes to an hour, and a few minutes might be 10 minutes. Or you might be somebody who, you're bouncing from thing to thing, many things during the day, and so maybe your long time is something that's 30 minutes or more. You may have a lot of tasks to do that take a shorter amount of time. So that's going to kind of change for you. So you're going to want to think about how that really makes sense for you and kind of what it means to you, what a long time means. And then you want to think about estimating your work time. Is it something that you're going to do frequently or something that you have done frequently? There's certain tasks that, we do every day or every week, and we know how to do those. We go in, bing, bang, boom, they're done. We know all the steps. Maybe we have a checklist. So we have a deep knowledge or experience in handling those things, and we know how long that's going to take. Maybe there's something occasionally we do, and we've done it a few times, but it's not something we do all the time. And then there's other ones that are, hey, we haven't done this before. So a good rule of thumb is to give yourself a little more time for the occasionally or first time things. And it's not something always that is in the forefront of our mind when we're scheduling these things. And I'm certainly guilty of it myself. I'll say, oh, yeah, I can get that done in, an hour or two. And then I find out really, oh, it really took 4 hours to get that done. So we want to make sure that we give ourselves and book ourselves enough time in our calendars and tasks to get things done. Also, something to think about, if you have something with a deadline, a best practice is to make sure it's on your calendar. That way you're looking at it during your day and you're seeing it. You can set reminders for yourself and so on. And then we also want to look at scheduling the work. So you want to think about, what is your workday like? What type of employee are you? Are you someone who's in the C-suite, or a supervisor or manager who has a lot of meetings? If that's the case, you want to give yourself a little bit of time in between the meetings. So if you have a 45-minute meeting, you want to give yourself 15 minutes after that just to check your messages, make some calls, just follow up, and then go to your next meeting. If it's a 2-hour meeting, you want to give yourself 30 minutes off. And these are just kind of time management guidelines. Not specific to Outlook, but because we're using Outlook to manage our time, we want to think about that. If you're an administrative professional, you're going to have maybe less meetings during the day, but you're going to have a lot of smaller, shorter tasks, but many more of them. So your scheduling may be a little bit tighter. And typically, you want to give yourself time after the meeting to be able to do those meeting notes. So you're going to want to schedule yourself a little more buffer in between. And then finally, in my world in IT, I'm thinking of this as a developer or designer, but you probably know in your industry those jobs that where someone is working on something that they really need big chunks of time to work on stuff. So they're going to probably schedule all their meetings together in a day, maybe in the morning, and then make sure that they have that big chunk of time maybe in the afternoon to get work done. Another thing is your best time of day. We all have times when we're our brain seems most engaged. We feel fresh and we're able to tackle those more complicated things. And you want to just keep in mind to schedule those really challenging pieces of work during that time when you feel your best during the day. For some of us, that's the first thing in the morning. For others of us, we're not morning people. It takes us a little bit of time to wake up, and so you might want to schedule a little bit later. And then finally, capturing your work. We're just kind of going back and looking over the things that we just talked about. So if it's something that's going to take you a long time, whatever that is defined for you, you're going to want to put it on your calendar. Or if it has a deadline, put it on your calendar. If it's something that is a shorter period of time or doesn't have a deadline, then you can put it on your task list. And finally, if it's something just real quick that you can do right now and just get it done, just go ahead and do it now. And try not to spend too much time worrying about, figuring out how much time it's going to take. Just look at it and know what your times are. So if your short time is, 10 minutes to 30 minutes, and you say, well, this is definitely going to take me more than 30 minutes, then you can just book it long. And if there's ever any question, give yourself more time. All right. So wanted to talk about that a little bit because we're going to be looking at our calendars. We're going to look at flags and categories and tasks. And we want to kind of think about how we're going to use these things and understand what our workflow is like so that we can get this set up right for ourselves out of the gate. So in here, I'm looking at some emails that I have that have come in. And one of the first things that I'm going to look at is creating appointments. Now, probably, all of you out there have created appointments and created events in Outlook and even meetings. But hopefully today we're going to touch on a couple of things that maybe you'll find something new that might save you a little bit of time. When we create appointments, those are for us. So we are scheduling our own time there. And I can pop open my calendar here, and you can see that I'm in my work week view. I have some other views up here, month and so on. But one of the nice things that you can do in Outlook, and this is based on Outlook 2016, but a lot of the functionality you're going to see in previous versions of Outlook as well. And one of those is being able to right-click and show this calendar in another window. So I can actually open this up in another window so I don't have to keep flipping back and forth between mail and calendar. I also have what's called a peek here. So if I want to if I have a lot of email, which in this box I don't, but trust me, I do. But if I have, a ton of email and maybe I'm responding to an email and I just want to see really quickly what I've got going on. Sorry, I clicked it. I can just hover over it, and that's going to show me a little peek window of what I have going on in the next day or so. I can also switch the calendar so I can just get a quick look without really moving away from perhaps the email that I am working on. So that's a nice way to be able to see that. So just switching over to my calendar view, you can see that I actually have a few different things booked in here, not too much actually. Typically, we have quite a lot more things in there that are scheduled. There are a couple of different ways that you can start an appointment. Obviously, you can go up to New Appointment. You can actually come into your calendar and click on it or double-click on it to start a new one. Here, I've right-clicked. I can start a new appointment from here or an all-day event. And by the way, that's the difference between an appointment and an event. Appointment is something that you're going to schedule for a block of time, where an event is something that's going to run one or multiple days. Another difference between the appointment and your event is that in an appointment, it's going to show you as being busy when you go to schedule that appointment. If we instead make this an all-day event, you can see that it's going to show you as free. So when people are looking to schedule time with you and they are looking ahead and trying to create that meeting, they're maybe looking at your calendar if they have that ability. They're going to see when you're busy or free. Events are going to show up as free by default, so it's something to keep in mind. If you're marking your vacation days on your calendar, you may want to come in and change that if you're using the event to mark it all day. All right, so let's head back to, I'm just going to cancel out of this guy for a minute, and I'm going to head back to my email because one of the things that I want to show you that you can do is dragging and dropping to create an appointment. And I think it's something that's kind of underutilized and something that's really easy to do and might save you just a few seconds of time. So I have this SANS information, and I actually want to book some time to review this. And I know that there's some things that I'm really going to have to kind of dig down in, follow some links, and read some material. So for me, this is going to be something where I am going to schedule some time on my calendar for that, because for me, I know it's going to take me more than an hour probably to do this. So all I did was drag and drop that onto my calendar. You can see that it brings up an appointment that's already pre-filled. I can go ahead and change the date and time. So I'm going to look at this on Friday, and I'm going to schedule this earlier in the morning because I'm fresh in the morning. I want to come in. I want to take a look at all of these different security updates, and I'm going to give myself an hour and a half for that. And then, you know, maybe I want to tone this down a little bit. I can certainly, you know, cut this back a little bit for myself, and then I'm going to go ahead and save and close it. So now, as I look in my calendar, I see that I've created that appointment over there for myself. There are other options that I could do from here. So let's say I have another appointment to create for myself. There's this email that I need to follow up on, and I'm going to take this time, I'm going to use my right mouse button, drag it down onto my calendar, and let go. And here this presents me with a bunch of different options. So I can do it as an appointment with text, which is what I was doing there, an appointment with the attachment, so it actually saves that email as an attachment in there. And if it has attachments, those will be in there as well, like this Word document. Or I can even copy it here as a meeting request if it's from, this one just happens to be forwarded from my other email. But if it was, in fact, this one from Michelle, in fact, let's take a look at what that would look like. So if I take this and drag it down, and I copy here as a meeting request, and it's from Michelle, now I can see that it's actually auto-populating this meeting that I'm having with her. So if it's something where I say, you know what, we need to sit down and review this, it's very easy for me to start that meeting, and then I can go ahead and change the dates and times. So some great options that you've got there for dragging, either with your left or right mouse button, depending on what you want to see there. So as we were looking at that, we were talking about meetings, and I have actually a recurring meeting that is sitting on my calendar, and we're going to take a look at how we can create recurring meetings in a second. But first, let's take a look at how you can create meetings just from the calendar view. So from here, looking at my month view, if I double-click on any date, because I'm in the month view, it's going to see this as an all-day event. If I, just going to close out of that, if I change my view to something else, let's say the work week, where I can actually see my calendar times over here, if I click on, I can double-click on the time that I want to start that meeting. And then you can see that it's going to populate that in there for me. So depending on, you know, what view I have on my calendar, that's going to give me some different options there as well. So once I start in my meeting, let's say that in this case, it's going to be a tech review with a client, and let's say that this is going to be with ABC Company, and the location is going to be in their Fulton office. And then if I wanted to add any additional information, I can insert files in here. I can put in, an Outlook message or a contact. I can put in a business card. So there's lots of different things that I can include. And I highly suggest including that kind of content in your appointments and your meetings, because that way people have all of the information that they need to be able to work with that meeting or that appointment. So for you, it might be you want to make sure that you've got that Word document so that you can review it during your scheduled time. Or for a meeting, obviously a lot of times we put in the contact information, like you saw when you did a registration. That became available as an appointment that you could add to your calendar, and it had that contact information right in there. But I would say even, look at adding some additional things in there. Maybe you want to add your own business card in there. So there's some great options of things that you can add to that as well. And in this case, because we're going to make it an appointment, I'm going to go ahead and click on Scheduling Assistant. So you have a couple of different options in there. One is Scheduling Assistant, and the other is Invite Attendees. What's the difference, right? Invite Attendees is going to give you the ability to just type in the person's email address. It's going to give you the ability to type in their email address and just invite them, where the Scheduling Assistant is going to actually show you, if you have access to their calendar, it's going to show you if they're free or if they're busy. So that's a nice advantage for if you're working with people internally and you're trying to schedule an appointment with them. You come in, I can certainly see, let's just use Michelle here. And because I've typed her in there before and I have her in as contact, it's showing me there she is. And now I can go ahead and schedule this. You see I don't have access to be able to see what's going on her calendar. But if I did, I would be able to see when spaces were blocked out when she was busy. So from here, I can add rooms, I can add other attendees, I can change options, and then I can go ahead and click Send. So now I see I've got this tech review here on my calendar for that specific time. Now, let's say that I'm in here and I want to change this meeting time. I can certainly go in, double-click it, open it up, change that time, but I can also just drag and drop it. So if she says, you know what, I'm actually busy Tuesday, can we reschedule it for Wednesday? So in here, I can drag it. It's going to pop up and say, do you want to save your changes, which is the time, save it and send the update, or do you, oops, you made a mistake and you don't want to do that after all? I'm going to say, yeah, go ahead. Send that out and make that change. And then when I refresh, it should come back up and show me that it has made that change and moved that appointment over. So let's just take a quick look. I can see it's on Wednesday now. I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. And there we go. It looks like when I double-clicked it, maybe that's when it actually went to send the change, but that is something that it does automatically when you move it. And you click go ahead and save and send. All right, so a couple of other things that you can do. Recurring meetings. So in this case, I've got, let's say this is tech review is something that I do with this client every month, and I want to be able to schedule this at the same, around the same time. So I'm going to pop this open, and I'm going to go into Recurrence. And this is something maybe that you've used a lot, but pretty helpful to be able to come in, set the duration. I'm going to come in and choose weekly, monthly. I can choose what day, or is it the third Wednesday. And I'm going to say I want to end this after 10 occurrences. So the guideline really is that you don't want to just do no end date. It's really like a best practice to say end it and only set it for a year. So we only want to go a year in advance. In this case, I'm just going to go with 10 because I know that we may end up having to change these after a year. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it as 10 occurrences right now. And then I'm going to say, okay. You'll see in this information bar up here that it's telling me when it recurs, and it's starting in January. It's going to end in October, and the time that it has. From here, I can also set the reminder so that I can see when I'm going to be reminded of this. I can do it way in advance, add a sound, and then I can go ahead and send this update, and it's going to actually show now as a recurring meeting, and I can tell because it has that little recurrence symbol. Okay, great. Time zones is another thing that you might want to look at when you're working with people and meeting with people. I know that for me, sometimes I'm working with vendors or clients that are in a different time zone, and it's helpful for me to be able to quickly see what that time is going to look like for them. So for me, maybe it's, Pacific time is what I'm looking at. You can actually get this, like what you're seeing on mine, by just right-clicking on it. Incidentally, this is also where you will see the different changes that you can make in your time slots for your calendars. So if you tend to schedule meetings, in 15-minute increments or 45-minute increments, it might make sense for you to switch it to the 15-minute view. That's going to give me room for a lot more detail. You can see my hours split up into 4 there. For me, I kind of like the 30-minute view. That works well for me, but you can certainly change that there. The other thing that I mentioned was changing the time zone. If I click on that, it's going to actually take me into Outlook options. And from here, I can go ahead. Typically, you will have 1 time zone. So if I say OK there, you can see now I'm back to the 1. So typically, it's going to show you 1 time zone by default. If I want to add another one to be able to see that, this is where I click on Show a Second Time Zone, and here I can select what that zone would be. Swapping time zones is not something that I want to do unless I want to make it like a more permanent thing. So in this case, that's what I want to see. I want to be able to look quickly. So if I say for me, this is at 9, I know this is 6 a.m. for Pacific time, so way too early for my vendor or my client out there. So I want to make sure it's a little bit later in the day. So if it's something that you do a lot of, that could be something that's really helpful for you too. All right, when you are scheduling time and you have a recurring meeting and you want to make a change to that, so I'm just going to go over to, I'm going to go to the home, and I'm going to go to monthly view because I see that for me this is a recurring meeting that happens every Monday. And let's say that I know I'm going to be out of the office on this coming Monday and I want to change this appointment. I'm going to come in, I'm going to right-click on it, I'm going to go to cancel meeting if I wanted to cancel it, or if I want to make a change to it, I can come in, double-click it, and it's going to ask me, do you want to change just this occurrence of this appointment or the whole series? In this case, I want to just change this one. There may be times when I do it for the entire series, and then I'm going to actually open up the entire series maybe and change the time to 10 o'clock. Maybe that's what makes sense. So I can go ahead and just change this one. And let's say I'm going to make it Tuesday instead because that's when I'm going to actually be back in the office. And then I can send this update. It's going to say, you sure you've changed the occurrence? Just change this one. It's asking me again, and yes, I do. So now you can see that even though it's scheduled as a recurrence, I do have the ability to make those changes. All right. So we're going to take a look at using some flags, and I'm going to go back to our email so we can take a look at that. So looking at our email, we talked about some things that maybe we want to create as a task or as a flag. And they're pretty similar. There is a difference between just flagging something and using a task. And there's an extra feature, some extra features with tasks that we'll look at in a bit. But for the flags, you may see this up on your bar. By default, it's going to be there. If you don't see that as one of your fields, you can right-click and go to Field Chooser, and then you can drag any of these fields that you want up to that bar. But here is our flag notification. And these are really to set an interval of time for ourselves. So it's something that we're flagging for follow-up, or we're flagging it for a certain reason, and we want to be able to schedule some time for ourselves to be able to do that. But it's not something that we really need to put on the calendar. So it's going to be a shorter time allotment that we're going to need. So right from here, I can right-click on this, is what I'm doing, right-clicking on that flag, and I can set it for today or tomorrow, this week, depending on what your calendar options are set at. If you're Sunday to Saturday, or if your work week starts on Monday and you want your calendar to start on that, that's what's going to designate whether it's this week. You can go to next week and set it for there. And notice also in this information, it's going to say start by Monday, due on Friday the 20th. So that's letting me know it's going to be, my follow-up for that is next week. So it's going to start on Monday, and it's going to be due on Friday. I can also set custom ones in there. If I wanted to say, no, it's actually going to be due on Thursday, I can do that as well. I can set a reminder for myself. Maybe I like to make sure that I am looking at that, and I'm starting that ahead of time. So I'm going to set my reminder to start this after I get in on Monday morning. And you can see I've got my little reminder over here. And what goes along with that is, if we take a look at the tasks that are over here, I'm just hovering over it so I can see my peek view. I can see that I have this items to complete, which is the subject of the email, and that is set for next week for me. I can also, right here, start a task, or I can look at any of the flags or tasks that I have. So you'll see all of that there. Another thing that I can do from here, once I have this completed, is I can mark it as complete. And that lets me know, yep, that one's done. So as a visual reminder, if you don't have a lot in your inbox, you can do that. You can also filter. You can sort by these flags. So if it was something where I had a bunch of these set for different times, and I wanted to be able to look at that in a different view and say, wow, what do I have to do next week? What am I working on this week? What have I completed? I can sort that email by those flags as well. It's not only limited to email. You can also flag people as well. So hopefully I've got someone in my box here. So here I have one of my contacts, Hayes, and I can actually come in and I'm going to create a custom one here, so I can see I have some different ones, but I'm going to say call about rack mount server, and I can actually set that of when I want that to happen. I can set a reminder for myself and say okay. Now when I take a look at, again, my peek, or in my task view, I can see that it's actually in there. He is, Hayes is flagged, and I can see what I need to do there by hovering over it and when that appointment is. So some really nice things that you can do with flags. So in here, I'm looking at my to-do list. My to-do list is going to show me everything that's flagged, and it's going to show me any tasks that I have. My task view down here is going to show me just tasks that I have created. So in this case, I'm going to actually start a new task, and it's something that I know that I need to get done, and it's going to be setting up handouts for next tech flight. I can go ahead and set the date of when I want that. I can set the date I'm going to start, and maybe that's tomorrow, and the date that I have to have this due by is a week later. I can set my status, the priority, high, low. If you use these a lot, it can be really helpful to help you track things that you need to get done. I can set a reminder for that. In this case, I'm just going to leave it set with this. And I can also add additional information in here. Again, it's something where I can insert multiple things. Maybe there's a picture that I need as part of that, or a file. I can go ahead and include that all right in my task, so I have everything when I'm ready to go and ready to get that done. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and I'm going to close it out. And now I can see I have my setting up handouts for my next tech flight. And if I go back over to my peek view, I can see that's going to be there for next week. If I go to my to-do list, I'm also going to see it there as well. So there is my task. One of the nice things about tasks is that that's different than flags is that you can actually delegate these. So if I wanted to be able to delegate this task, I'm just going to save my ribbon here so I can see it. From my task ribbon, I can actually assign this task to someone else. You know, if this was something where I didn't really need to do it, but maybe I just need to proof it, I could go ahead and assign this to someone else. And then here I have a couple of options: keep it updated, keep it a report when it's complete. And then I can go ahead and send this off. Now, I can tell there's a little difference now that it's assigned. I see a person there. And when Michelle accepts this task, I'll get an email saying that she accepted it. And then as she changes the status on this from complete to 20% complete or 50% complete, she may have additional questions for me that come through on here. All of this is contained right within the task. So it's really nice, and I can get that update on where we are in progress with that. So something really nice that you can have there. And just like we've done with the attachments, with the dragging and dropping with the calendar, we can also do that for tasks as well. So if this is something that we want to create a task for, I can simply drag it there. My information is in there about what this is, and then I can go ahead and fill it out and save it. And I will come back and actually show you some different ways that you can look at these different views. So as you start using them, categorizing them, prioritizing them, you can look at them in different ways. You can sort and filter by who the task is assigned to. So if I wanted to change any of these views, I can do that, and I can also customize my view. But since we're getting close on time, we've got about 20 minutes left, I really want to get into categories so that you can see how the categories might help you as well. All right, so I'm going to go back to my calendar because this is probably one of the most visual ways that I use categories that I have available. The nice thing about using categories is that you can see on this calendar, I don't have a lot of stuff in here. But if you're someone who uses your calendar a lot in Outlook, you know you can have many, many things on this, and it can be pretty full. And one of the things that makes that tough is that when you look at it, you don't have a sense of what you're doing for the day. And that can be really helpful, especially if it has to do with an appointment with a client or something that has a deadline that you really need to get done. You want to use color coding that can draw your attention to that, and that's part of what categories are about. So one of the ways that I can assign categories is by highlighting the meeting and going up to categorize and choosing from this list. There's other ways that I can do that if I have the appointment open, and I'm going to open just this one. But I can also do it when I'm creating it, which is helpful too. So in this case, I know that this is a meeting with a client. I have set up my categories already, so I have one for client meetings, and then I could make that change, but let me pick something that's more of just an appointment so I can do that. So in this case, I'm looking at something that's training for me. I have a category that's out there for that. It's professional development. For me, it's teal. And I'm going to go ahead, assign that, and save it. So now you can see, I can see quickly that, oh, I have some training this day. And that really becomes obvious to me. For this appointment that I have here, this recurring meeting, this is something where this is actually an office update. This is when we're doing some internal dialogue about what's going on. We're catching up on things that are going on in the office. So for me, I like to have a category called internal meetings. That way I know these are a little bit more flexible maybe. This is probably something that I might be able to move around, maybe to make room for a client or a client appointment. So I know that these are inside with internal people, and that kind of gives me some idea about what I'm doing that day, and is that something really quickly in a second I can see if it's something I can move. There are other things like this task or this calendar appointment that I created for myself. I'm just right-clicking on it to get to categories, and from here, I've set something where I know that this is something that I just really need to work on, but it is about planning for a client, let's say. I can choose client planning there, and that lets me know. The next one below it is actually a meeting with a client, so I'm going to choose client meeting. And one of the things that you may notice here is that these are both client related, and they are shades of the same color family. So that's one thing to think about when you're creating these categories. I'm going to go down to all categories, and this is where I can make changes to all of these, rename them, delete them, create new ones, change the color, add a shortcut key if I want to, and this is where I can make these changes. So if I go in, I say new, I can see that I have a bunch of different color options to choose, and I can go ahead and name it. And what I think is a good idea is to kind of plan these out before you start using them, and think about how you want to use these different categories. How many are you going to need? Because that's going to help you select what color scheme you're going to use for them. So maybe for you, if you have a lot of different types of client events, maybe you would want to use like black, gray, this kind of whole gray family, and steel to be able to set those. Maybe it's a case where, you've only got one. I have one, in fact, purple is what I use to say I'm in the Watertown office all day this day. That for me is purple because it's kind of the only one. Well, there is actually a dark purple, but I don't really use purple for anything else. So as you do this, you want to kind of take a look at how many types of appointments or meetings that you're going to set, and how many colors you're going to need for that when you go ahead and create categories. So it's nice because you look at it, you get a really quick overview of what's going on in your day without really even having to read anything, and it can be really helpful. Another thing that you can do with this is actually take a look at a different view where I can go to, in this case, I'm looking at a calendar view, but I can also go to list view, and here I can see, well, how much time am I spending on professional development or internal meetings? I can see that really quickly if I'm doing it in a list and if I am sorting it by category. So it kind of gives me a nice overview to be able to kind of look at how I'm spending my time. And maybe I decide that I need to make some adjustments from that. So category is very nice for the visual and also for tracking, filtering, and sorting as well. So we talked about flags, we talked about categories. You can assign multiple categories to something. So if it's something where it's an internal meeting, but I'm also going to be in Watertown, I can go ahead and assign multiple. What's going to show up for that is whatever I assigned last. So in this case, it was Watertown. That's what I'm seeing, even though it has both of these on it. And then when you sort and filter, you're also going to see it in both locations because it has multiple categories on it. So if I wanted to, I could take off Watertown, and in this case, it's going to want me to do an update because it's something where a meeting where I've had other people. But I can make those changes to those categories as I need to. All right, that's pretty much for categories. I want to get into quick steps and rules just for a couple minutes here before we go, because even though it's something that, it's not something where you're really scheduling your time, quick steps and rules are things that can really help you save some time because you're automating some of the things that you do. Before we jump into that, though, I want to make sure that you know where you can save some of these or set some of these options that you have for your email, for your calendar, for your reminders, things like that. So we're going to go to File and Options, and in here you'll see General, Mail. So these are all the settings that have to do with mail. What happens when it comes in? Where does it go? How are you notified? Here's your calendar. You can set your work week. My work week is Monday through Friday. For some people, maybe it's Tuesday through Saturday. Go in, set your default reminders. You can always override them, but you're going in and setting your defaults for what you'd like these to be. Same for tasks. You can set automatic reminders. You can set the quick click, which means when you left click on it, it automatically assigns this time flag to it. And other options that you can set are all within that File Options list. So let's get on to quick steps a little bit, because these, I think, are fantastic and really cool. Quick steps you'll see up in your ribbon, and there are a set of 5 that are built in that you can use. And these are really going to help to automate steps of things that you do frequently. So one of the things that I do a lot is I forward emails to Michelle. So maybe for me that's something that would be a lot easier if I went ahead and created something for it. So I know that sending it to my manager, it's actually going to send it to someone. And even though Michelle's not my manager, I can change this, and I can say, this is going to be to Michelle. And now I can go ahead, I can forward it, I can select her from here. So there she is. Say OK, and now I can save that. And what that does for me is when I have something that I want to send to Michelle, I can just click on it. It auto-populates it with her name. I can add whatever I want and click Send. Done. Now, this is a pretty simple setting, but I could also do it for multiple people. And there are other options that I can set for something that I want it to do at that time. So let me just go in, and I will manage these. And from here, I can actually edit that. So now I can see I can add an action here. And there's lots of different things that I can choose to do. Maybe it's something when I forward this to Michelle, I always want to move it to a certain folder or copy it to a folder so I have it in my inbox and in another folder. Or maybe I want to simply delete the message. Once I forward it to her, I'm done, and I can delete it. I can save that as part of that action. So they're not things that I have to actually do multiple clicks for and do it separately. This is something where I can set all of these steps that I do, name it accordingly, and then when I'm ready, I just click on that, and it does all of those options for me. So again, if you want to create a new one, you can go down through here. You can add actions, and I highly encourage you to check those out. They save a ton of time for things that you often do. So what's the difference between a quick step and creating rules? Rules have been around for a long time. They're still there. We can create them. I can go in and manage them. Here it's giving me a suggestion of what I might want to do for a rule. The difference with rules is that rules run automatically. So once I set that, it's running automatically. For quick steps, they don't happen But the difference is that rules run automatically. The quick steps are things that I can set, and they don't run until I click on them. So in here, I can go through this rule wizard and create this rule. I can say when I get an email from someone, when it has a certain subject line, if it's sent to me only or specific people. I can decide if it's something that is it going to pop up an alert window. Maybe if it's something that's from your boss, you want it to pop up in your face when he emails you. That certainly is something that can be set there, creating a sound, moving it to a folder. That one's pretty common. You may have, newsletters that come in that you want, just send that to my box that I create. So let's say in this case I'm just going to come in and go new folder here, and I'm going to put newsletters. And this is something where I'm going to go back in and maybe review it later, but I just want to get it out of my inbox for now, or I want it sent directly to that. I could go ahead and create a rule for this and say always move this to newsletters. Now I'm not even going to see that when it comes up. It's going to just go ahead and move that right in there. And do I want to run it now? Sure. So now I have effectively gotten that in there. And that will happen without even doing anything. It's just going to happen automatically. It's going to dump it in here. And I'll see if I have new ones in there because when they're not read, it's going to show me that number count in there. So again, a couple of additional tools that are in there that can really help you out. And with that, I'm going to wrap up today and pass it back to Michelle to see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Patty. We actually do not have any questions listed in the question box. Oh, there's one. Stephanie would like to know, how do you add your picture? I assume that's how we add our picture to our Outlook account.
Right. So, yeah. So depending on how your email is set up, but that is something that comes either through addition to your Office 365 profile if you're using that, or if you have an internal email server, perhaps Microsoft Exchange, that would be something that's added to your Exchange account. So it's something that's added to your profile. It depends kind of how your back end is set up for your email to be able to do that.
Okay, and Patty, she said thank you. Any other questions at this point?
Great. I hope that you found some value in this. Really, it's going to take a little bit of thought to, decide how you can use these things and digging into them a little bit. But I encourage you to think about it and take a little bit of time and looking at how you might be able to use some of these things to save you some time. One other thing that I thought of that I just want to show you really quick is we talked about being able to use your calendar for scheduling those things that are going to be long, that are going to take a long time, and for the short time things, we're going to use the task view. As long as you have this on a view other than month, any other calendar view, you'll be able to see your tasks that you have for that day and your appointments and your meetings all in the same view. So here I can see I've completed this one, and I see I have completed it. Over here on Friday, I can see I've got some stuff coming up on Friday to do. Once I go in and complete those, I will see them marked as complete as well. If they were categorized here, I would also see that category in there as well. So just so you know, it's great when you go into this because you get that whole day's view or the week view all in one screen, and you can see all of the things that you need to do. Okay, it looks like there aren't any other questions.
There are no more questions. Make sure you grab the handout that is on your dashboard. Everything that Patty has discussed, it's there in a nice little Word document for you to refer to.
Okay, so I think that kind of wraps us up for today. Again, thanks everyone for attending, and hope you found some value there. You'll be getting a survey probably tomorrow. that's going to ask you, what you thought about it. We always welcome input as well as ideas for upcoming Tech Bites, things that you want to see and learn about. And with that, we'll call it a day. So thanks, everyone.